judgment to mislead this committee or to mislead the president who was nominating you. Let me ask you a second question.
Senator, I don't agree that I misled this committee, so I would like to make that
the record is, I believe, abundantly clear, and in fact, I will be sending out my cross-examination from the last hearing.
Gigi appeared in front of the Senate Commerce Committee to face her third confirmation hearing. Senator Ted Cruz confronted her regarding a confidential agreement she kept hidden from lawmakers, as well as a dozen financial contributions made to Democratic senators throughout her ongoing nomination process. He additionally pointed out a social media post she made praising an organization for aggressively criticizing those same committee officials. Hit the subscribe button and let us review the footage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Sohn, this is your third hearing. That is highly unusual. One of the reasons that you've had three hearings is that in the first hearing, you went through the entire hearing without disclosing the sweetheart settlement concerning low-caste. And the entire purpose of the second hearing was when that came to light. You actively misled Ranking Member Wicker when he asked you in writing about the $32 million settlement. You did not correct the record that it was, in fact, only 2% of that amount, $700,000. You also disclosed at that second hearing that you never notified the White House of this sweetheart deal, even though you signed it literally the day after they announced their intention to nominate you. My question is this: do you think that your failure to disclose the secret deal to this committee and your failure to disclose it to the White House, do you think that reflected poor judgment, yes or no?
No, I answered Senator Wicker's question honestly, okay? And I'm on advice of counsel.
No, you don't think it was poor judgment?
No, I do not, because I was bound by the confidentiality agreement of the settlement.
With respect, no, you were not. The confidentiality agreement, section 6.0, prohibited you from communicating with the media or the press. The last I checked, the United States Senate is not the media or the press. You had an obligation to answer this body accurately, and you did not. I would note the White House is not the media or the press, and you told this committee you didn't inform the president of it either. But let me move on. You don't think it was poor judgment to mislead this committee or to mislead the president who was nominating you. Let me ask you a second question.
Senator, I don't agree that I misled this committee, so I would like to make that
the record is, I believe, abundantly clear, and in fact, I will be sending out my cross-examination from the last hearing, where you repeatedly mislead this committee in that hearing. And in fact, we'll go ahead and actually put this up. I'll note, I asked, did you disclose to the committee that agreement? I did. Did you disclose the agreement to the committee? I did. Hold on a second. Did you disclose to this committee? Yes or no? I did. You disclosed the $700,000 secret settlement? No. So 3 times you say I did, and then, oh, no. You did not. You misled this committee, and you also misled the White House. Let me ask you secondly, the 15 months that your nomination has been pending, you've made not 1, not 2, not 3, you've made 12 separate political contributions to senators running for office. I've been in the Senate 10 years. I have never seen a nominee make contributions to senators while your nomination is pending. I've never seen that once. I had my staff search the records. If we could find anyone in the Trump administration who had done that, my staff was unable to find that. You've been a significant political donor over the years, giving over $32,000. You gave. Do you believe it was poor judgment to give 12 separate political contributions to Democrat senators while your nomination was pending?
Senator, I'm a citizen who just wanted to participate in the Democratic process.
Do you think it's poor judgment to cut checks to senators who are voting on your nomination while it's pending? No other nominee that we can find has ever done that. Do you think it was poor judgment?
Relatively small donations? No, I don't.
It was over $1,000, $32,000 over your life.
Well, that's over my life.
Well, over $1,000 while your nomination was pending. All right.
But not to one person.
There were to a dozen senators, to a dozen different senators, including senators who've been critical of your nomination and senators who have not. You managed to cover the waterboard of Democrats running for office. All right, let's turn to another issue, which is you have been an active supporter of a left-wing activist group called Fight for the Future. And I will say the record of Fight for the Future is really quite remarkable because they have blasted members of this committee on both sides of the aisle. Here's a billboard Fight for the Future put up in West Virginia in 2017 attacking Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat. The billboard essentially accuses Joe Manchin of being corrupt. Ms. Sohn, do you believe Joe Manchin is corrupt?
Absolutely not.
You don't? Okay, well, that's interesting. I will point out, in 2017, Fight for the Future also erected similar billboards accusing Senator Tester and Senator Peters of being corrupt, both of whom are members of this committee. I can't recall a nominee who's actively supported efforts to blast members of this committee to run billboards.
Senator, may I address that, please?
You may.
When you say actively, I give every single organization with whom I work on net neutrality $100 contributions at the end of the year.
Ms. Sohn, with
doesn't mean I agree with their tactics.
The time is limited, and yes, it does, because after they put up the billboards attacking Manchin, Tester, and Peters as corrupt, afterwards, you sent this tweet. Just made my end-of-year donation to this organization, urging others to do it after they did that. And because the time is limited, I'll note this group also blasted Marsha Blackburn, Dan Sullivan, and Roger Wicker, and astonishingly called for Chairwoman Cantwell to be fired. And after each of those, to be removed from as chairwoman of this committee, after each of those, you supported it. And in fact, I want to turn to the final point, the Roger Wicker one, where this group protested and said, you're buying a senator, and you said you don't support their tactics. I'm going to point out, you tweeted, well done, to this radical group who blasted the former ranking member of this committee and saying that his donors were trying to buy a senator. If they were trying to buy a senator, were you trying to buy senators when you made a dozen contributions?
Senator, I did not know, number one, that was about Senator Wicker. Number two, I was criticizing
it says
Senator
Roger Wicker right there.
Okay, well,
that is literally what you retweeted was his name.
That's fine, but I was actually criticizing the donors and not criticizing the senator.
Senator Markey.
Here is the story the mainstream press refuses to report. The nominee for the Federal Communications Commission required a third hearing because she concealed critical facts from the panel during her initial appearances. Senator Cruz arrived determined to ensure she could not obscure any details this time around. First was the matter of a confidential agreement she signed valued at $700,000. When Senator Wicker inquired about this agreement in writing, she claimed the figure was $32 million. That was completely false, as the actual sum was merely 2% of her stated number. Once this massive inconsistency surfaced, she acknowledged that she never took steps to correct the official record. She also failed to inform the administration regarding the settlement, despite signing the paperwork the very day after her nomination was announced. Cruz directly questioned whether this failure to disclose vital information demonstrated a severe lack of judgment. She confidently replied that it did not. He then presented the official transcript from her earlier testimony, highlighting 3 distinct instances where she claimed she disclosed the agreement before finally admitting she actually had not. Cruz stared at her and noted that on 3 separate occasions she insisted she had provided the information. He forcefully stated that she did no such thing, accusing her of intentionally deceiving both the legislative committee and the executive branch. Second was the issue of financial contributions, as during the 15 months her nomination was active, she made 12 distinct monetary gifts to the Democratic lawmakers responsible for voting on her confirmation. Cruz remarked that in his decade serving in the Senate, he had never witnessed a nominee engage in such brazen behavior. His legislative staff reviewed the historical records and failed to find even one nominee from the previous administration who had done something similar. She dismissed the funds, totaling over $1,000 distributed among 12 different officials while her confirmation remained pending, as relatively minor contributions. He countered by suggesting she had essentially blanketed the entire landscape of Democratic candidates currently seeking election. Third was the controversy surrounding an aggressive left-leaning activist organization she actively supported. This specific advocacy group funded public billboards labeling Senator Manchin, as well as Senators Tester and Peters, as corrupt politicians, even though they all sat on the committee evaluating her. Following each of these targeted attacks, she contributed money to the organization and publicly encouraged others to do the same. Then came a highly controversial social media post, which occurred after the activist group protested outside Senator Roger Wicker's office to smear his financial backers as corrupt. Immediately following that demonstration, she published a message containing just 2 words of praise: "Well done." Cruz challenged her directly, asking if she was attempting to purchase legislative influence with her 12 donations to Democratic committee members, given her stance on Wicker's donors. She responded by claiming she was entirely unaware that the message she praised was directed at Wicker. Cruz quickly noted that Wicker's name was explicitly written within the very content she chose to share. This process involved 3 separate hearings, a confidential payout hidden from the government, 12 targeted financial gifts to lawmakers deciding her fate, and public praise for activists attacking those very officials. You must decide for yourself if this individual possesses the integrity required to regulate the American telecommunications industry, so please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this content.